InnerQuest explores various pathways through which you can connect with the infinite wisdom of the universe and apply it to personal, professional, and spiritual growth. This program, featuring accomplished practitioners, educators, and authors, is provided by Infinity Foundation, an innovative center for holistic studies and research.
Hello, welcome to InnerQuest. My name is Jay Stone, and our guest for today is Hailey Ahanna Hinson. Did I get that correct?
Anna.
But close. Darn. All right. Hailey is a spiritual teacher and energy healer, animal communicator, animal massage practitioner, and a yogi. She has been using many ancient, multicultural, spiritual healing modalities for humans and animals since childhood. One such modality has been beekeeping, as well as teaching beginning beekeeping classes. Hailey is an Ohio beekeeping ambassador for OSBA. What does that stand for?
Ohio State Beekeeping Association.
Okay, and SVP?
Scioto Valley Beekeepers.
Scioto?
Scioto Valley Beekeepers.
Oh, is that like the valley you were from, or?
It's the Scioto River in Ohio goes down through Pickaway County, Ross County, and those areas, and so there's a collective of 3 counties that we have over 100 families for the Scioto Valley Beekeepers.
Wow. Okay. What led you to become a healer and energy worker?
Well, I've always been one. I grew up on a farm, and I was the oldest. And
out of how many?
5.
Okay.
And we were always in with all the animals, and my family believed in working with angels and that there was more than just us here. And so they allowed me to not ever turn off my abilities. So I was naturally doing Reiki and talking to my guides and my angels. And
was this something you learned from your parents, or just something?
No, it's something I remember from my past lives, and it came forward, and they being my guides and other light beings, always were there. And when I would tell my family, they believed me. They didn't quite know how to take it because they weren't seeing and hearing and feeling the same things. But they never squashed that for me. When I was in elementary school and stuff like that, I realized people couldn't hear and see, so I kept it quiet until my mid-20s, and a very good friend of mine asked why I was hiding. She was like, the world needs more people like us. Let's bring you out of the healer's closet. So I have been.
What were you doing before you came out of the healer's closet?
I was already doing the animal massage. I've been doing that for over 13 years now.
So you trained as a regular human massage therapist?
No, only animals.
Okay.
As long as you don't have collarbones, I'm certified to work on you.
Okay.
So I did that. I showed Black Angus cattle and did the whole dairy farm, beef farm thing. My family rode hunter jumpers, so I was around that world. But when I went to the massage world, I started picking up even more of the energy work and realized I was already doing it. And then started meditation when I was 6, started doing yoga when I was 14, Tai Chi when I was 18.
When did you start working for other people? Did you go to other people's farms?
My family would move from different farms to help with management and things like that. So I grew up that way, kind of moving from different farm to different farm that needed a new manager or whatever position my father was going to be.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what healing modalities do you teach and practice? Because I mentioned a lot.
I'm a yoga instructor around the North Chicagoland area.
And is there a particular style of yoga that you do?
Well, Hatha is sort of the umbrella of all yogas. So I primarily practice, for me, Hatha yoga with a little bit of Kundalini and Yin. But my niche for teaching yoga seems to be working with people that are recovering from injury, are brand new to yoga, or are turning from surgeries. I actually have some doctors that are recommending their people to me. So
Good
seems
for
to be
you.
my niche.
Yeah, I also think you'd be good with children because you seem to be
I
a lot
love
of fun.
doing children's yoga, and I've done a couple of them from babies. I've done parent me classes all the way to people in hospice, both the Tai Chi meditation and the yoga.
And why did you start doing animal communications?
Well, it was it's always been something that I've been able to do.
Well, people, I should back it up. People may not know what animal communication is. Can you define it for our audience?
Animal communication is a form of telepathy. It's a heart-to-heart, soul-to-soul connection between all beings. And telepathy and energy work know no time boundaries. So that is why we are able to talk to animals and other beings that aren't physically here with us. I have clients that are all over the world because of that. I'm also able to speak with beings that have passed on because there's no...
Whether it could be a cat or a dog that's passed on.
Right. I've talked to gerbils, lizards, you name it. So the connection is sort of a crystalline, if you want to think of an infinity loop between that being and you.
Okay.
And everybody has the ability. It's letting it come forward.
Okay. Now, yesterday in the news there was a emaciated cougar that killed one bicyclist and injured another. If you encountered an animal like that, what do you think would happen?
Growing up, I did come across some a rabid coyote. I've had packs of coyotes come up close. One area where I grew up, there were what we called coy dogs. They were coyotes bred with dogs that were in the area, and there were breeders that were doing fighting dogs. And these coyotes were about this tall, and they would circle combines and try to stand down large equipment. Some of those, there's really no, animals are just like people. If they have their mind set to something, you have to figure out how to talk them down from that. You can't control them. So when I've come in contact with that, or a mad cow that doesn't want me to deal with her calf, which is almost as dangerous as dealing with a mother bear, it's watching how your body language is, the normal things that we're taught, but also clearing your mind, clearing yourself of any fear so that you can have a clear heart-to-heart conversation with them and letting them know that you're not wanting to mess with them. Now the cougar, as you know, when your nutrition is down and you haven't had enough water, thinking goes out the window for humans and for animals.
Because the brain needs water, the brain needs food.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And my read on that particular case is that they were basic survival, and usually they would not be doing that type of thing. They wouldn't be hunting a cyclist.
Well, they did kill the animal, and I don't know if you know this, but they going to examine the brain to see if there was some type of deficiency or problem in it. So you're very
My bet
accurate.
is that that's highly
All
caused.
right. So let's talk about the bees. I mean, you've got the honey. Well, first of all, I look at the honey. This, I guess, is something that came from one of your beehives versus the other one that's store-bought?
Nope. They're both from my hives.
Are they different types of honey?
Yes.
Or? Okay.
This is a spring honey.
Okay.
And this is actually 4 years old.
Okay.
And it's crystallized. That's what the
honey
little
never goes
granules-
bad, does it?
No, it doesn't. That's why they've been able to find it perfectly edible in tombs, along with essential oils and some of the other things that were buried with them, because it's thought to be healing, as well as one of the highest forms of currency. But this is, see, that's a black dot. That is actually summer honey.
Okay.
So summer honey is going to be a little darker, and it's going to have more of a wildflower hue to it, whereas the spring is going to be very light. That's a lot of the florals from the spring, your flowering trees, black locusts, the cherry blossoms, those things. So it's lighter in color. Now this one's a little darker because it's 4 years old in that jar. This one is from
and the nutrition hasn't declined in those foyers.
No. I was going to bring some of the bee pollen, and I forgot to bring that. But the bee pollen has a lot of protein, and they collect that. So.
Okay, and then in front of the jar, it looks
Wax.
like a candle. Is that something you made?
That one I did not. That is a molded candle where you take the beeswax that is in sheets and you roll it. And so it'll burn quicker than when you do a poured candle or a dipped candle. So the other form is to pour them into molds that are silicone or sprayed plastic.
Is that something you teach in your beekeeping class?
I've not taught the candle making. I've experimented with it, and I've experimented with soaps and lotions and baked goods. But I know some of the top people in the nation that happen to be in my bee group. So.
Well, have you ever heard of Michael Field's Agricultural Institute? Yeah, I received an email from them, and they talked about how dandelions are actually good for the bees.
Yes.
I didn't know that.
Yes, and I actually just the other day had a lawn person tried to talk me into taking care of our lawn, and they're like, all these weeds, everyone's having a hard time with the weeds this year. No, dandelions aren't weeds. They have many medicinal reasons for
you can
us.
eat them.
Yes, I eat the greens. You can use the flowers for many different things. But the bees, that's one of the very first things that they start collecting in the spring. When the dandelions really start blooming, you know that you don't have to feed your bees anymore for the winter. The winter's over.
How would you feed your bees?
There are two different ways. You can make patties, which are a mixture of crystallized honey with a little bit of protein that are usually from pollen. You can buy those from different companies, or you can make them yourself. I've done both ways. And they're kind of a gooey, sticky, tacky kind of thing, and you cut it up, or you can just slap the whole thing right on top of the frames, or have it on top of a frame that's raised. The other method is to have honey or sugar water, where you take mason jars like this and you poke holes in it, or you can buy those already made. And there's kind of like the hummingbird feeders. And you tip it over, and they will actually use their tongues to get it. Their tongue is uncoiled. It's the length of their body. So they can stick it into the flowers and up inside the jar. The other method is actually to save some of the honey on the frames and keep it wrapped up, and so that you can just feed them frames of honey during the winter.
Will they overeat? Bees overeat?
Not really, because they...
Did you ever see a fat bee?
A fat bee is a happy bee, and that means a very healthy hive.
Yeah.
But not overweight. You can't really tell if they're overweight or not.
Yeah.
But the honey, you try to leave enough on going into winter so that you won't have to feed.
Okay.
So, yeah.
All right. How did your connection to honeybees come into your practice?
I have a dear couple that are dear friends of mine that had a bed and breakfast, and I was helping them with their bed and breakfast. And they had always wanted to get into honeybees. And I went to a couple meetings and to some talks in the area, and that's how I met the SVB people. And I was hooked. And we started our hives. We started with 2. They made it almost through the winter, and then they petered out and died. So then we started again, and we caught swarms, and it just kept growing and growing and growing until now we have anywhere from 16 to 18 hives at a time. We have nukes, which are mini hives, and we do splits, and we sell those for new beekeepers to start out with. And we do education programs for children. We go into nursing homes, schools.
Is this located in Illinois or back?
This is all in Ohio. I have yet to find a group that I blend with as well yet here.
Yeah. Okay. And so how many years ago did you start those hives?
2009, I believe, is when I started beekeeping.
Okay. They say it takes 10 years to master any subject or art. And
even
so
the master beekeepers, the old-time beekeepers, the common saying is that they will never outsmart the bee. The bees are always evolving, so even now what they had working 18 years, no fail, it goes out the window. Things are changing rapidly right now.
Very, very wise. Well, and you want to talk about some of those changes?
Oh, well, for one thing, a queen bee used to be able to last 6, 8 years, no problem. Now you're lucky to have a queen bee last a year. And most of that is because of the pesticides and the herbicides getting into
Their food source?
the food source, but they also flake off substances from themselves. They actually have wax glands. So whatever they're consuming goes into the wax. So they're living in all of that. So there's particles of all of that in their wax. And they're finding that that first generation may not be affected, but it goes through the lifelines and the generations of the bees. So it may be 6 generations, which could be in 1 year. 6 generations of bees, they're going to be the ones that are affected the most. So we have the human aspect of pesticides and things, but we also have other pests like the hive beetle, and there are diseases that affect their breathing.
And so if they're taking in a lot of pesticides and herbicides, it weakens their immune system.
Yes, very much.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And a queen will start laying from day one. She'll lay nonstop, sometimes 16,000 eggs a day. So,
Wow.
I mean, it's a lot. She doesn't stop, except she takes a little bit of a break during winter, because whatever bees were hatched in fall will go, hopefully, through the winter, and then they'll die off, and then the spring bees will come. And then after that, you're lucky to have a worker bee. The female bees last 6 weeks.
And then you need a new generation?
That's why she is laying constantly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Did you want to show? You brought one of your nukes?
So I brought a nuke, which holds usually 5 of the frames here. This is a medium nuke. So this is a starting frame, which will have a base layer of wax in it. You can either build these yourself, or they'll come already coated, or just wax that's pressed and molded, just like what's in the candle. And then you put that in the hive, and you have to make sure that they have a good nectar flow. And they'll start to draw out the comb. And you'll see where some of it is damaged here.
Mm-hmm.
And the sheet behind it is what they started out with. And so they actually chew the wax after it flakes out of their abdomen, out of the wax glands. They bring it forward. The jaws are not for chewing food. It's actually for shaping the wax. And they make the hexagons. And if you know your sacred geometry, the hexagon is one of the strongest symbols and shapes. And they naturally will make the hexagon shape everywhere. And this was damaged, so if I were to put this back in the hive, they would start repairing this and bringing it back out again.
And now, do you recommend people start with the smaller one? Here, let me put this up here.
With a nuke?
Yeah.
Some beekeepers will start with the nuke, or they will get a package that comes in a box like this. And you will get a queen cage that will, there's actually a dead queen in there, that will have a queen, and usually, one of her buddies will have some attendants that take care of her. So they feed her, they groom her, and that'll be slid in here, stapled or sort of slid in one of these grooves, and there'll be another piece of wood stapled, and there'll be a little thing of syrup for the package of bees.
So if somebody wanted to start, they can, this is even smaller than this one here, is that correct?
Yes. So this is about 2 pounds of bees, roughly 12,000 bees in
How
here.
much honey could, because people want to know.
If you're starting out, you're probably not going to get much honey that first year, because unless you already have drawn out frames. If you have frames that have wax, they're worth their weight in gold, because it takes, this to be drawn out probably takes about 2 weeks of gathering nectar for that amount of bees. And they need to have, usually in this, they would have to have 5. In a full hive, you can have 8 frames up to 10 frames going wide.
And then I notice people will have them stacked one on top of the other.
So with this, you can use this for starting out, and then they'll outgrow that, and you'll have to put them in a bigger one. Or if you're raising queens, or you caught a swarm.
How do you raise queens?
You keep them in a controlled area, and you put them near a mating yard. So that's where all the drones are going to hang out. It's secret to the bees. They decide where there's going to be a drone mating area, and they fly 20 feet up into the air, and that's where the newly fledged queens will go and fly to be mated up to 19 times. She'll mate one time in her life. The males will mate and they die. And
with a smile on their face.
yes.
Yeah.
And then when they come back to the hive, you can make sure that there's only one queen in each hive at that time. Usually whoever hatched first is the one that survives, because she'll go and kill the other queens.
Oh.
So when you're raising queens, you have to keep an eye on when did they cap off that cell. It'll look like a peanut or like a bagworm kind of thing on the frame. And so you want to either slowly graft, so you take off some of the wax behind it and you put it on different cells so you can mark them and keep track every day, so you know exactly 18 days from when they capped it to when she's going to hatch. Mm-hmm. So when you start to see that, you can either have them in separate places so they don't kill each other, or you better be on your toes.
Because if you're not on your toes, they'll end up killing one another?
Yes, queens will fight to the death. Lots of shrills and screaming, and the queen bee is the only honeybee that can sting multiple times. The worker bee has a stinger, but she can only sting once, and the drone has no stinger.
And the worker bee that stings once, it dies after that?
Yes. Yes, the stingers connect actually to their innards. So when the barbs stick in the skin or a hide, it pulls out while they try to get away.
Do you need to explain any of this other stuff that I got here?
That's the inner cover. So
Okay.
this is for ventilation as well as they can come in and out. So this is an inner cover. During the winter, we keep it down. During the summer, we put it up for ventilation. There's also lots of... You can talk to a group of beekeepers and they'll say different ways of putting it up. They can come up through here.
Okay.
And then when that lid, that top lid goes on, there's some space.
Okay.
So they can crawl up and around, and they can even come up through the edges here. Usually this would not be covered. This has a covering for transporting bees. This is one that we transport swarms in. Usually this little piece here would be out, and you can put a screen so that mice don't get in, and skunks.
Mice and skunks, they want the honey?
The mice want to live in there.
Okay.
The skunks want the bees.
Oh,
the skunks will scratch at the hive and wait for the bees to come in, open up their mouth, and just gobble the bees up.
Wow, have you ever seen a skunk do that?
Yes.
Yeah.
I was not happy with that skunk.
Did you communicate with that skunk?
Yes, in more ways than one. Yes. I've communicated with skunks in my chicken coop and in my bee yards. They're not allowed in there.
Okay. All right, let's put this down.
Sure.
Okay. All right. Now, I've got some neighbors that are beekeepers, and I see them wear a hat and with the mesh and use smoke. What's that all about?
So the smoke is for two things. One, it can desensitize certain smells. So if you've been really, really sweaty, they don't like that smell. So you can sort of mist yourself with the smoke, and then it takes down the human smell or scent. The other reason why smoke is used, traditionally, I mean, cavemen used it. We have depictions. One of the oldest pieces of artwork is actually a man on a rickety ladder with a basket full of comb with a torch. And it's found in a cave in Europe. So fire and smoke have been used because the bees think there's a fire. They gorge themselves with the honey, which does make them slower, because then they think they're going to have to leave quickly. So they slow down a little bit. They're not coming over you and trying to mash you.
Yeah.
Now the veils, there are a couple different veils. There's some that zip onto your jacket and you look like a Teletubby or a hazmat suit. And then there's the Alexander veil, which is the traditional pith helmet with the veil draped over. And that keeps them from getting in your hair, in your nose.
Yeah. Because of how you said they can crawl in the lip, they can get into places.
Yes, and when you're in the hive, you have the lid off, the frames are exposed, you've got your hive you're disrupting their home. You're taking the frames out and inspecting and making sure that they're healthy. If you're taking honey, you're robbing honey. So they'll ping off of you in warning before they sting. They'll ping.
Okay. Do you have an idea how many times you've been stung in your life?
The last time that I was badly stung, I had 6 stings to the back of my head, and I did end up in the emergency room because when you're stung in the head, it strengthens the sting about 15 times.
That's good for our audience to
Yes.
know.
So if you're stung in the head, ice it, see if you can get the stingers out. You may want to think about getting some medical help just because it goes faster to the bloodstream. There's no
Were you
tissue.
wearing a helmet or?
No, I was walking through our courtyard and I happened to be in the line of the flight of the bees. And I happened to have lemongrass on because I was teaching about essential oils. And lemongrass smells like the queen pheromone.
Oh.
So as long as you're not going to be around a bee yard, you can wear lemongrass because it helps with mosquitoes and ticks. But if you're going to be near a bee yard, try not to wear the lemongrass.
And so what was your reaction to the 6 bee stings?
Well, I iced it, ate, and then took the ice pack off because I was actually supposed to be leaving Ohio to drive up here immediately.
Okay. Yeah.
And I went into the powder room and was freshening up and realized that my shirt was a little snug. I had a tank on. It was a little snug, and I looked in the mirror. I'm like, things are a little puffier than they should be. I have a severe soy allergy, so I know how to handle anaphylactic shock, and I was doing my prep work before I have to use an EpiPen, and it wasn't kicking in fast enough, and we're right around the corner from the hospital. So I went in, and I have other medical conditions that could make it worse.
Yeah.
So we took care of it, but I've been stung many times. I used to help a beekeeper that had well over 200 hives. So,
yeah, that's a lot of hives.
Yeah.
And I've seen on TV like 60 Minutes where they would go around in semi-trucks.
Yes, migratory beekeeping.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I have a friend that used to do that. He's now retired from that. That was the one I was helping with the over 200 hives. They will strap lots of hives onto a truck, and they'll go from crop to crop. So right now, they would be ending the almond crop and heading to the watermelon fields right now, actually.
Yeah, and they would get to, who gets to keep the honey that the bees make?
Usually the rights are to the beekeeper.
Mm-hmm.
If they choose to keep it. A lot of migratory beekeepers, they're in it to pollinate.
Yeah.
So then they'll sell that honey to somebody that wants to make products or just sell liquid honey or bottled honey.
You know, we got about a minute and a half left. I'll leave it to you what you'd like to say about beekeeping or animal communication.
Well, beekeeping is a lovely hobby to get into, but it can easily not be a hobby anymore. It takes a lot of work, so if you're going to do beekeeping, try to...
How much work are you talking about?
To have a healthy hive, please dedicate at least 5 hours a week to your bees.
Okay.
And there's some prep for winter being this far north. For things like animal communication, make sure that you can do some meditation every day or at least once a week, even if it's just for 3 minutes, and let things clear so that you can have an open channel to allow that.
Cut you off. Sorry, Hailey.
No
For
problem.
more information about Hailey Infinity Foundation InterQuest, stay tuned to the credits at the end. Until next time, wish you good health, good fortune, and good spirits. It's been a real pleasure
you.
to meet you.
For more information about this show, our guest, Infinity Foundation, or any of our other programs, please visit our website, infinityfoundation.org, or call us at 847-831-8828.